Tawakkul begins where fear ends. This idea is not about the complete disappearance of human emotion, because fear is a natural part of being human. Rather, it speaks about a transformation within the heart, when fear no longer controls your decisions, no longer defines your perspective, and no longer overshadows your belief in Allah's power. A person who truly develops tawakkul does not become fearless in the sense of recklessness. Instead, they become anchored. Their heart recognizes that while dangers, uncertainties, and unknowns exist, none of them operate outside the will and knowledge of Allah. This realization slowly shifts fear from being a dominant force to becoming a passing feeling that does not dictate action. In life, fear often arises from uncertainty. You fear losing what you have, you fear not getting what you want, and you fear outcomes you cannot control. Tawakkul directly addresses this uncertainty by redirecting your reliance from circumstances to the creator of circumstances. When a person internalizes that nothing happens without Allah's permission, fear begins to lose its intensity. The unknown is no longer terrifying because it is known to Allah. The future is no longer overwhelming because it is already written. What once seemed like a dark, unpredictable path now feels guided, even if the details remain hidden. This does not mean the challenges disappear. Rather, your relationship with them changes. When fear governs your heart, every obstacle appears larger than it truly is. Small problems feel overwhelming, and delays feel like disasters. But when tawakkul enters the heart, perspective shifts. You begin to see challenges as part of a greater design, not random misfortunes. You understand that difficulties are not signs of abandonment, but opportunities for growth, purification, and elevation. This understanding weakens fear because it replaces confusion with meaning. Tawakkul also requires a conscious release of control. Much of human fear is rooted in the desire to control outcomes, wanting things to happen in a specific way, at a specific time, according to a specific plan. When reality does not align with these expectations, anxiety and fear intensify. True trust in Allah means accepting that your control is limited and that ultimate control belongs to Him. This acceptance is not passive, it is liberating. It frees you from the exhausting burden of trying to manage everything and allows you to focus on what you can control: your effort, your intentions, and your response. There is a powerful shift that happens when you move from what if everything goes wrong to even if things go wrong, Allah is in control. This shift does not eliminate effort or responsibility. It strengthens them. You still strive, you still plan, and you still work hard, but your heart is no longer attached to the outcome in a way that breeds fear. Instead, your heart rests in the certainty that whatever the result, it will be within Allah's wisdom and mercy. Fear often isolates a person, making them feel alone in their struggles. Tawakkul does the opposite. It connects you deeply with Allah. When you trust Him, you constantly turn to Him in your thoughts, your prayers, and your decisions. This connection creates a sense of companionship that dissolves loneliness. You begin to feel that you are never facing anything alone, and this awareness itself reduces fear. The presence of Allah in your consciousness becomes stronger than the presence of any threat or uncertainty. Another aspect of tawakkul is courage. When fear no longer dominates, you become more willing to take steps that align with truth and purpose. You speak when necessary, you act when required, and you pursue what is right, even if it is difficult. This courage does not come from self-confidence alone, but from reliance on Allah. You are not trusting your own strength. You are trusting the one who gave you strength. This makes your courage more stable and less dependent on external validation or favorable conditions. At the same time, tawakkul teaches you to differentiate between caution and fear. Being cautious is wise. It involves taking necessary precautions and making informed decisions. Fear, on the other hand, often paralyzes and prevents action. Tawakkul allows you to maintain caution without falling into fear. You lock your doors, you plan your steps, and you take precautions, but your heart remains calm because it is not relying on these measures alone. It is relying on Allah. As this trust deepens, fear gradually loses its grip. It may still appear in moments of weakness or uncertainty, but it no longer controls you. Instead of being overwhelmed, you acknowledge the feeling and then redirect your focus back to Allah. This repeated process strengthens your tawakkul over time. It becomes a habit of the heart, a natural response to life's challenges. Trusting Allah removes anxiety about outcomes. Anxiety is often tied to the future. What will happen, how things will turn out, whether your efforts will succeed or fail. It thrives on uncertainty and the human tendency to imagine worst-case scenarios. When you trust Allah, you shift your focus from obsessing over outcomes to fulfilling your responsibilities. This shift reduces anxiety because it places your energy where it belongs, in action rather than speculation. Much of anxiety comes from attaching your sense of worth or happiness to specific results. You believe that you will only be okay if things go a certain way. This creates immense pressure because outcomes are never fully within your control. Tawakkul breaks this attachment. It teaches you that your value is not determined by results and that your peace does not depend on achieving a particular outcome. Instead, your peace comes from knowing that you have done your best and that the result is in Allah's hands. When a person truly trusts Allah, they begin to see outcomes differently. Success is not just achieving what you wanted. It is receiving what Allah has decreed for you. This perspective transforms disappointment. What once felt like failure now feels like redirection. What once caused anxiety now invites reflection. You begin to ask, not why didn't I get what I wanted, but what is Allah teaching me through this? This shift reduces the emotional weight of outcomes and replaces anxiety with curiosity and acceptance. Trusting Allah also means believing in His wisdom, even when it is not immediately apparent. Sometimes, outcomes do not make sense in the moment. Plans fall apart, opportunities disappear, and efforts do not yield expected results. Without tawakkul, these experiences can lead to frustration and anxiety. But with tawakkul, you hold on to the belief that there is a greater wisdom behind what is happening. You may not understand it now, but you trust that understanding will come, or that it may remain hidden for a reason. This belief acts as a shield against anxiety. Instead of spiraling into what-if scenarios, you anchor yourself in Allah knows. This simple yet profound statement carries immense weight. It reminds you that your knowledge is limited, but Allah's knowledge is complete. It reminds you that what you perceive as a loss may actually be protection, and what you perceive as a delay may actually be preparation. Another important aspect is the role of effort. Tawakkul does not mean abandoning effort and expecting results to come effortlessly. On the contrary, it requires sincere effort. However, it separates effort from outcome. You give your best without becoming emotionally dependent on the result. This balance is crucial in reducing anxiety. When you know that your responsibility is to try and that the result is Allah's domain, you free yourself from the burden of perfection. Anxiety often arises from overthinking, constantly replaying possibilities, analyzing every detail, and trying to predict outcomes. Tawakkul interrupts this cycle. When you trust Allah, you recognize that excessive overthinking does not change what is written. Instead of getting lost in endless thoughts, you redirect your energy toward productive actions and remembrance of Allah. This redirection calms the mind and reduces the intensity of anxious thoughts. Trusting Allah also brings a sense of contentment. Contentment does not mean a lack of ambition. It means being at peace with whatever Allah chooses for you while still striving for improvement. This balance is powerful because it allows you to pursue your goals without being consumed by them. You work hard, but your happiness is not postponed until you achieve a specific outcome. You find peace in the present, knowing that whatever comes next is in Allah's hands. In moments when anxiety does arise, tawakkul provides a way to respond. You turn to dua, you seek comfort in remembrance, and you remind yourself of Allah's attributes, His mercy, His wisdom, His power. These reminders are not just words. They reshape your internal state. They replace fear with hope, uncertainty with trust, and anxiety with calm. Over time, this practice builds resilience. You become less shaken by outcomes because your foundation is not built on them. Your foundation is built on trust in Allah. This makes your emotional state more stable even in the face of change and uncertainty. You still feel, you still care, and you still hope, but you are not overwhelmed in the same way. Ultimately, trusting Allah does not remove challenges or eliminate all forms of stress, but it changes your relationship with them. It transforms anxiety from a constant burden into a manageable experience. It allows you to move through life with a sense of calm assurance, knowing that while you do not control outcomes, you are under the care of the one who does. What seems impossible to you is easy for Allah. Human beings are naturally limited in their perception. You evaluate possibilities based on what you have seen, experienced, or understood. When something falls outside those boundaries, you label it as impossible. This label, however, is not an absolute truth. It is a reflection of your limitations, not a reflection of reality. When you bring Allah into the equation, the entire concept of impossibility changes. What appears unreachable to you is already within His control. What seems broken beyond repair can be restored by a single command. This understanding reshapes the way you look at your struggles, your dreams, and your fears. Often the feeling of impossibility arises when all visible means seem exhausted. You try different paths, make repeated efforts, and still find yourself stuck. At that point, the mind begins to conclude that there is no way forward. But Tawakkul invites you to look beyond visible means. It reminds you that Allah is not bound by the systems you observe. He can create outcomes without conventional causes, or He can bring results through paths you never considered. This is why what seems impossible to you remains entirely possible for Him. This belief does not encourage passivity. Rather, it strengthens hope. When you know that Allah's power has no limits, you are less likely to give up. You continue making effort, not because you are certain of the outcome through your own ability, but because you are certain of Allah's ability. This distinction is crucial. It shifts your motivation from self-reliance to reliance on Allah, which is far more stable and enduring. Many times, people confine their du'as because they believe certain things are too big, too unrealistic, or too far beyond reach. They hesitate to ask, thinking that their requests are impossible. But when you understand that nothing is difficult for Allah, your du'as become more open, more sincere, and more hopeful. You begin to ask without limiting Allah's power based on your own perception. This does not mean every request will be granted exactly as you imagine, but it means you are placing your trust in a Lord whose ability is infinite. There is also a subtle but important transformation in how you interpret events. When something unexpected happens, something that defies logic or exceeds expectations, you no longer see it as coincidence. You recognize it as a manifestation of Allah's power. This recognition strengthens your faith and reinforces the belief that the boundaries you perceive are not absolute. It builds a mindset that is open to possibility, grounded in trust rather than doubt. At the same time, believing that nothing is impossible for Allah requires humility. It means acknowledging that your understanding is incomplete. You may not see a way forward, but that does not mean there isn't one. You may not understand why something is delayed, but that does not mean it will never happen. This humility prevents despair. It keeps the heart open, even in moments of difficulty, because it refuses to close the door on Allah's mercy. This belief also affects how you handle setbacks. When something does not work out, it is easy to conclude that it was never meant to be or that it is beyond reach. But with Tawakkul, you consider another possibility, that this is not the end of the story. Perhaps there is a different path, a different timing, or a different outcome that is better for you. This perspective allows you to move forward without losing hope. It keeps you engaged with life rather than withdrawing in defeat. In addition, understanding that Allah can make the impossible possible brings a sense of relief. It lifts the burden of trying to figure everything out on your own. You no longer feel the need to have all the answers or to see the entire path clearly. It is enough to take the next step with trust. This approach reduces stress and creates a sense of calm, even when the situation remains uncertain. It is also important to recognize that sometimes the impossible is not removed, but redefined. You may not receive exactly what you asked for, but you may receive something that fulfills the same need in a different way. What you thought was the only solution may not be the best one. Allah, in His wisdom, may choose a different outcome that you could not have imagined. This is another way in which the impossible becomes possible, not by changing your circumstances in the exact way you expected, but by providing what is truly best for you. Ultimately, this keynote invites you to expand your perspective. It encourages you to move beyond the limits of your own thinking and to anchor your hope in Allah's limitless power. It teaches you to keep striving, keep asking, and keep believing, even when the situation seems beyond repair. It reminds you that your definition of impossibility does not apply to Allah, and that within His will, there are possibilities you have yet to imagine. Tawakkul is not laziness. It is effort with reliance. This distinction is often misunderstood. Some people think that trusting Allah means doing nothing and waiting for things to happen. In reality, this approach contradicts the very essence of tawakkul. True tawakkul requires action. It requires you to use the abilities, resources, and opportunities that Allah has given you, while recognizing that the outcome of your efforts is ultimately in His hands. Effort is a form of responsibility. You are expected to strive, to plan, and to take the necessary steps toward your goals. Ignoring this responsibility under the guise of trust is not tawakkul. It is avoidance. At the same time, relying solely on your effort without acknowledging Allah's role leads to arrogance and anxiety. Tawakkul exists in the balance between these two extremes. It is the harmony of doing your best while placing your trust in Allah for the results. When you understand tawakkul correctly, your approach to effort changes. You no longer work with desperation or fear. Instead, you work with purpose and calmness. You give your best not because you are trying to control the outcome, but because you recognize that effort itself is part of your duty. This mindset makes your actions more consistent and less dependent on emotional highs and lows. Another important aspect is intention. Tawakkul aligns your effort with sincerity. You are not just working for worldly gain. You are working with the awareness that your actions are seen by Allah. This awareness elevates even simple efforts into acts of worship. It gives your work meaning beyond immediate results and helps you stay committed even when progress is slow or invisible. At times, people avoid effort because they fear failure. They think that if they try and fail, it will confirm their doubts or expose their weaknesses. Tawakkul addresses this fear by reframing failure. When you trust Allah, failure is not a final judgment on your ability or worth. It is an experience within a larger plan. It may be a lesson, a redirection, or a preparation for something greater. This perspective encourages you to take action despite uncertainty. Effort with reliance also prevents burnout. When you believe that everything depends entirely on you, the pressure can become overwhelming. You may push yourself beyond your limits, constantly worrying about outcomes. Tawakkul lightens this burden. It reminds you that while your effort matters, it is not the sole determinant of results. This realization allows you to work hard without exhausting yourself mentally and emotionally. There is also a sense of discipline that comes with tawakkul. Trusting Allah does not mean acting impulsively or neglecting planning. On the contrary, it encourages thoughtful action. You consider your options, seek knowledge, and make informed decisions. Then, after taking these steps, you place your trust in Allah. This sequence, effort followed by reliance, is essential. Skipping either part leads to imbalance. In moments when your efforts do not produce the desired results, tawakkul helps you maintain stability. Instead of collapsing into frustration or self-doubt, you remind yourself that the outcome is not entirely within your control. You reflect on your efforts, learn from the experience, and continue moving forward. This resilience is a direct result of combining effort with trust. Another benefit of this balance is that it protects you from arrogance when things go well. When you achieve success, it is easy to attribute it solely to your own effort. Tawakkul keeps you grounded. It reminds you that your ability to act, the opportunities you received, and the results you achieved are all from Allah. This awareness fosters gratitude and humility, preventing success from becoming a source of pride. Effort with reliance also influences how you view time and progress. You understand that results may not come immediately and that delays do not negate your effort. You continue working with patience, trusting that Allah's timing is perfect. This patience allows you to stay committed over the long term rather than giving up when immediate results are not visible. In addition, tawakkul encourages consistency. Because your motivation is not tied solely to outcomes, you are more likely to continue your efforts even when progress is slow. You recognize that every step you take is valuable, regardless of the immediate result. This consistency often leads to outcomes that might not have been possible with sporadic effort. Finally, this keynote emphasizes that reliance on Allah is not separate from action. It is integrated into it. Every step you take is accompanied by a sense of trust. Every decision you make is guided by the awareness that Allah is in control. This integration creates a balanced approach to life, where you are actively engaged in your responsibilities while remaining spiritually connected and emotionally grounded. Allah's plan is always better than your expectations. Human expectations are shaped by limited knowledge, personal desires, and short-term thinking. You hope for outcomes that make sense to you in the moment, based on what you can see and what you think will bring you happiness or success, but your perspective is restricted. You do not know what lies ahead. You do not fully understand the consequences of every path, and you cannot see the hidden factors that influence your life. Allah, on the other hand, possesses complete knowledge of the past, present, and future, of what is visible and what is hidden, of what benefits you and what harms you. When you truly internalize this, you begin to understand why His plan is always superior to your expectation. Often, people equate a better with easier or more desirable. They assume that if something does not align with their expectations, it must be worse. But Allah's plan operates on a deeper level. What is better for you may involve challenges, delays, or outcomes that you did not initially want. These elements are not signs of a flawed plan. They are part of a perfect design that takes into account aspects of your life that you cannot perceive. A difficulty may strengthen your character. A delay may prepare you for a greater opportunity, and a closed door may protect you from harm you cannot see. When your expectations are not met, it is natural to feel disappointment. You may question why things did not go as you hoped, especially when you invested effort and made sincere dua. In these moments, trusting that Allah's plan is better becomes essential. It allows you to move beyond the surface of the situation and consider a broader perspective. Instead of fixating on what you lost, you begin to reflect on what you might be gaining, whether it is growth, protection, or a redirection towards something more suitable. There is also an element of timing in Allah's plan. You may want something immediately, believing that it is the right moment, but Allah knows when you are truly ready. Receiving something too early can be just as harmful as receiving it too late. His plan takes into account your readiness, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. What feels like a delay to you may actually be a form of preparation. During this time, you are being shaped in ways that will allow you to handle what you are asking for more effectively. Another important aspect is that your expectations are often influenced by comparison. You see what others have, what they achieve, and how their lives unfold, and you begin to form expectations based on those observations. However, Allah's plan for each person is unique. What is suitable for someone else may not be suitable for you. Trusting His plan means accepting that your journey does not need to mirror anyone else's. It frees you from the pressure of comparison and allows you to focus on your own path. Sometimes, Allah's plan gives you exactly what you asked for, but in a different form. You may pray for success, and instead of receiving a specific opportunity, you are given the skills and resilience that lead to success in another way. You may pray for ease, and instead of an immediate removal of difficulty, you are given strength and patience to navigate it. These outcomes may not match your expectations, but they fulfill your needs in a more comprehensive way. There is also a deep sense of peace that comes from accepting that Allah's plan is better. It removes the constant tension between what is and what you wish would be. Instead of resisting reality, you begin to align with it, trusting that it is part of a greater wisdom. This does not mean you stop striving for improvement or making due for what you desire. It means that while you strive and hope, you also accept and trust. This balance creates emotional stability and prevents you from being overwhelmed by disappointment. Trusting Allah's plan also helps you reinterpret past experiences. When you look back at moments where things did not go your way, you may begin to see how those outcomes led to something better. A missed opportunity may have opened the door to a more suitable one. A difficult experience may have taught you lessons that shaped your future. These reflections reinforce the belief that what you initially perceived as negative was actually beneficial. It is important to recognize that understanding Allah's plan is not always immediate. There may be situations where the wisdom remains unclear for a long time or even indefinitely. In such cases, trust becomes even more significant. You rely not on your understanding, but on your belief in Allah's wisdom and mercy. This type of trust is deeper because it is not dependent on visible evidence. It is rooted in faith. This keynote ultimately calls for a shift in mindset, from insisting on your expectations to trusting in Allah's plan. It encourages you to hold your desires with humility, recognizing that while you may hope for certain outcomes, Allah knows what is truly best. It invites you to find comfort in the idea that even when things do not go as planned, they are still going exactly as they should. True trust comes after sincere effort. Trusting Allah is not the starting point in isolation. It is the culmination of a process that includes intention, action, and then reliance. Before placing your trust in Allah, you are expected to engage fully with your responsibilities. You assess your situation, make plans, and take the necessary steps. This effort is not separate from trust. It is a part of it. Without sincere effort, the claim of trust remains incomplete. Sincere effort means giving your best within your capacity. It involves using the resources, skills, and opportunities that Allah has provided. It also involves seeking knowledge, making informed decisions, and learning from experience. This type of effort is purposeful and conscious. It is not rushed or careless, but thoughtful and deliberate. When you put in this level of effort, you fulfill your role in the process. Once this effort is made, true trust begins. At this stage, you release your attachment to the outcome and place it in Allah's hands. This release is not a sign of indifference, it is a sign of faith. You have done what you could, and now you acknowledge that the result is beyond your control. This transition from action to reliance is what defines Tawakkul. One of the challenges people face is confusing effort with control. They believe that if they work hard enough, they can guarantee a specific outcome. When reality does not align with this belief, it leads to frustration and self-doubt. True trust corrects this misunderstanding. It reminds you that effort influences outcomes, but it does not determine them completely. There are factors beyond your control, and ultimately the result is decided by Allah. Sincere effort also protects you from regret. When you know that you have done your best, you are less likely to dwell on what-if scenarios. Even if the outcome is not what you hoped for, you can find peace in the fact that you fulfilled your responsibility. This peace is an important component of Tawakkul. It allows you to accept outcomes without being consumed by self-blame or doubt. At the same time, sincere effort requires honesty with yourself. It means acknowledging when you have not done enough and being willing to improve. Trusting Allah does not mean ignoring your shortcomings or using reliance as an excuse for lack of effort. Instead, it encourages self-reflection and growth. You continuously strive to do better while maintaining your trust in Allah. There is also a spiritual dimension to sincere effort. When your actions are aligned with good intentions, they become acts of worship. This alignment strengthens your connection with Allah and enhances your sense of purpose. You are not just working for worldly results. You are working with the awareness that your effort is seen and valued by Allah. This perspective adds depth to your actions and makes them more meaningful. After making sincere effort, placing your trust in Allah brings a sense of relief. You no longer carry the burden of trying to control everything. You accept that the outcome is in His hands and that whatever happens will be in line with His wisdom. This acceptance reduces anxiety and allows you to remain calm, even in uncertain situations. Another important aspect is perseverance. Sincere effort is not always a one-time action. Many goals require consistent effort over time. Trusting Allah includes continuing to strive, even when results are not immediately visible. It means maintaining your commitment while believing that your efforts are not wasted. This perseverance is a key part of Tawakkul because it reflects a deep level of trust in Allah's timing. When outcomes do not match your expectations, sincere effort combined with trust helps you respond constructively. Instead of giving up or becoming discouraged, you reflect on your approach, make adjustments, and continue moving forward. You understand that setbacks are part of the process and that they do not negate your effort. This resilience allows you to grow and improve over time. Sincere effort also enhances gratitude. When you achieve success, you recognize both your effort and Allah's role in the outcome. You understand that while you worked hard, the result was not solely due to your actions. This awareness fosters humility and appreciation. It prevents you from becoming arrogant and reminds you to remain connected to Allah. In essence, true trust is not passive. It is active, dynamic, and deeply rooted in both action and faith. You engage fully with your responsibilities, give your best effort, and then place your trust in Allah. This combination creates a balanced approach to life, where you are neither overly dependent on your own abilities nor neglectful of your duties. It allows you to move forward with confidence, knowing that you are doing your part while relying on the one who controls all outcomes. When you rely on Allah, doors open unexpectedly. There are moments in life when everything appears blocked. You try different paths, put in effort, make plans, and yet nothing seems to move forward. It feels as though every door you approach is closed, and with each failed attempt, your hope begins to weaken. In such situations, reliance on Allah transforms your perspective. Instead of seeing closed doors as final endings, you begin to understand them as redirections. What you cannot see in that moment is that Allah may be closing certain paths to guide you toward others that are more beneficial, even if they are not immediately visible. Unexpected openings often come in ways that defy your planning. You may meet someone at the right time, receive an opportunity you were not actively pursuing, or find a solution to a problem from a source you never considered. These moments feel surprising because they fall outside your expectation. However, when you reflect on them through the lens of Tawakkul, you realize that they are not random. They are part of Allah's precise plan, unfolding at the right moment and in the right way. Reliance on Allah shifts your focus from obsessing over how things will happen to trusting that they will happen if they are meant to. This shift reduces the pressure to control every detail. Instead of trying to force outcomes, you remain open to possibilities. You continue to make effort, but you're not limited by your own imagination of what is possible. This openness allows you to recognize opportunities that you might have otherwise overlooked. Sometimes the doors that open unexpectedly are not the ones you initially wanted. You may have been focused on a particular goal, believing it to be the best option for you. When that path does not work out, it can be disappointing. However, Tawakkul teaches you to remain receptive. The alternative that appears may lead you to something far greater than what you had planned. This requires humility, the willingness to accept that your understanding is limited and that Allah's choices may differ from your own. There is also an element of timing in these unexpected openings. A door may remain closed for a long period and then suddenly open when you least expect it. During the waiting period, you may feel stuck or uncertain. But in reality, that time is not wasted. It may be preparing you for what is to come, developing your patience, strengthening your character, or aligning circumstances in ways you cannot see. When the door finally opens, you are not the same person you were before. You are more ready, more aware, and more capable of handling what lies ahead. Reliance on Allah also encourages persistence without desperation. You continue to try, but you are not crushed by setbacks. Each closed door does not break you, it simply redirects you. This resilience keeps you moving forward until the right opportunity appears. Without this reliance, repeated failures might lead to giving up. But with Tawakkul, you maintain hope, knowing that Allah's help can come at any moment and from any direction. Another important aspect is gratitude. When doors open unexpectedly, it reminds you of Allah's generosity. You recognize that what you received was not solely the result of your effort, but also a gift from Him. This realization deepens your connection with Allah and increases your appreciation for what you have been given. It also reinforces your trust, making it easier to rely on Him in future situations. Unexpected openings also challenge your assumptions about control. You may believe that success depends entirely on careful planning and precise execution. While these are important, they are not the only factors. Allah's will plays a decisive role. When you see doors open in ways you did not anticipate, it reminds you that there is a dimension beyond your control that influences outcomes. This awareness brings humility and reduces the tendency to attribute everything to your own efforts. At the same time, reliance on Allah does not mean waiting passively for doors to open. It involves active engagement with life. You knock on doors, you explore options, and you take initiative. The difference is that your heart is not attached to any single path. You are willing to move forward, trusting that Allah will guide you to what is best. This combination of action and trust creates a balanced approach, where you are both proactive and surrendered. There is also a sense of ease that comes with this mindset. When you believe that Allah can open doors for you, you are less anxious about missing opportunities. You trust that what is meant for you will reach you, even if the path is not straightforward. This belief reduces the fear of failure and allows you to take risks that align with your values and goals. Relying on Allah opens your life to possibilities beyond your imagination. It teaches you to see closed doors as part of a process, not the end of the journey. It encourages you to remain hopeful, patient, and active, knowing that the right opportunities will come at the right time. It reminds you that Allah's ways are not limited by your understanding, and that what lies ahead may be far better than what you are currently striving for. Patience strengthens trust in Allah. Patience or sabr is not merely about waiting, it is about how you wait. It is about maintaining composure, faith, and perseverance during times of difficulty or delay. When you combine patience with tawakkul, you create a powerful foundation for navigating life's challenges. Patience allows your trust in Allah to grow deeper and more resilient, especially when circumstances test your faith. In moments of ease, trusting Allah may feel natural. When things are going well, it is easier to believe that everything is under control. However, true trust is revealed during hardship. When you face delays, losses, or uncertainties, your patience is tested. It is in these moments that sabr becomes essential. By remaining patient, you prevent your trust from being shaken by temporary difficulties. Patience involves controlling your reactions. When something does not go as planned, it is easy to respond with frustration, anger, or despair. These reactions can weaken your trust in Allah, as they are often rooted in the belief that things should have happened differently. Sabr, on the other hand, encourages you to respond with calmness and reflection. It reminds you that there is a wisdom behind every situation, even if you do not immediately understand it. There are different forms of patience, and each one contributes to strengthening your trust in Allah. There is patience in obeying Allah, which involves consistency in your actions despite challenges. There is patience in avoiding wrongdoing, which requires discipline and self-control. And there is patience in facing difficulties, which involves enduring hardship with faith and resilience. Together, these forms of patience build a strong and stable relationship with Allah. One of the key ways patience strengthens trust is by giving you time to see the bigger picture. When you are in the middle of a difficult situation, it is hard to understand why things are happening the way they are. Patience allows you to move through the experience without rushing to conclusions. Over time, you may begin to see the wisdom behind what initially seemed confusing or painful. This realization reinforces your trust, making it easier to remain patient in future challenges. Patience also helps you manage expectations. You may have a timeline in mind for when things should happen, but reality often unfolds differently. Sabr teaches you to accept that Allah's timing is not the same as yours. Delays are not necessarily negative. They may be part of a larger plan. By being patient, you align yourself with this timing instead of resisting it. This alignment reduces frustration and strengthens your sense of trust. Another important aspect of patience is hope. Sabr is not passive resignation. It is active endurance combined with hope in Allah's mercy. You remain patient because you believe that relief will come, that your efforts will bear fruit, and that Allah's plan is ultimately good. This hope keeps your trust alive, even when circumstances are difficult. Patience also protects your heart from negativity. When you are impatient, you may fall into patterns of complaining, doubting, or losing motivation. These patterns can weaken your connection with Allah. Sabr, on the other hand, helps you maintain a positive and balanced mindset. It encourages gratitude for what you have, even as you strive for improvement. This balance strengthens your faith and keeps your trust intact. In addition, patience builds resilience. Each time you endure a difficulty with sabr, you become stronger. You learn that you can handle challenges without losing your faith. This experience increases your confidence in Allah's support. You begin to trust not only that He will guide you, but also that He will give you the strength to navigate whatever comes your way. There is also a deep sense of reward associated with patience. Knowing that Allah values your endurance and that your struggles are seen gives meaning to your difficulties. This awareness makes it easier to remain patient as you understand that your efforts are not in vain. It reinforces the idea that trust in Allah is not just about outcomes in this world, but also about your relationship with Him. Patience and trust are closely intertwined. Without patience, trust can become fragile, easily shaken by challenges. Without trust, patience can feel empty, lacking purpose. Together, they create a balanced and powerful approach to life. Patience sustains your trust during difficult times, and trust gives your patience direction and meaning. As you practice patience, your reliance on Allah becomes more natural. You are less reactive, more composed, and more confident in His plan. You begin to see delays and difficulties not as obstacles, but as part of a process that is shaping you. Perspective allows you to move forward with a steady heart, grounded in faith and strengthened by experience.